In modern web development, there is a crucial security mechanism known as cross-origin resource sharing, or CORS. By default, browsers enforce a strict same-origin policy, meaning only requests from the same domain, protocol, and port can access resources. If an unfamiliar external site tries to read your data, the browser mercilessly blocks it, throwing a glaring red error in the console. This sounds like pure technical jargon, but if you examine the structure of human consciousness, you'll find that our ego is actually the most precise and strict same-origin policy filter in the universe. Our mind is like a highly guarded server, constantly checking the origin of every emotion, event, and experience that approaches us. As long as it aligns with our existing beliefs and makes us feel safe and pleasant, we label it same origin and allow it in. But those not-me things that bring pain or challenge our beliefs are treated as malicious cross-origin requests and ruthlessly blocked. This is the root of human suffering. We restrict the vastness of life experiences to an extremely narrow whitelist, rejecting interaction with the entire universe. Imagine that your body and mind are a local server named localhost. From the moment you are born, your brain begins building the firewall rules for the system. Social conditioning, childhood trauma, and cultural expectations all become your CORS configuration files. When the emotion of fear sends a GET request, trying to make you experience it, your ego immediately checks the origin. No, this origin is unwelcome and will cause system instability, access denied. When sadness attempts to send a post request, wanting to write an experience of loss into your memory bank, the ego activates its defense mechanisms again. This violates our security protocol of must always be happy and successful, connection reset. We spend an enormous amount of life energy not on living, but on maintaining these tedious access control lists. We are so afraid of being contaminated by not-me things that we enclose ourselves in a seemingly safe but actually extremely barren mental sandbox. In the cosmic game of Leela, this resistance to cross-origin resources is the essence of ignorance. You think you are protecting yourself, but in reality, you are simply rejecting life itself, isolating yourself from the boundless, divine source code that is calling out to you. This defense mechanism might have been necessary in the early stages of our survival. It acts like a basic network configuration that helps us stay alive in a physical world full of dangers. We need to distinguish between what is nourishment and what is poison, who are friends and who are beasts. However, when we step onto the path of spiritual awakening, when we long to understand the deeper nature of life, this outdated same-origin policy becomes the greatest obstacle. True enlightenment is not about upgrading this firewall to military grade so you become invulnerable, nor is it about only allowing love and light requests to pass through. Instead, enlightenment is a complete system refactoring, a jailbreak of consciousness. It's about finally having the courage to open your server's configuration file and changing that header field, access control allow origin, which controls your emotions and experiences, from a restrictive specific list to an asterisk that represents infinite inclusion. This asterisk is the greatest symbol in the universe. It stands for, I allow experiences from any origin to read my awareness and write into my life. It is an earth-shattering declaration, meaning you are no longer playing the boring game of protecting the ego, but are ready to let all of existence experience itself through you. Let's delve deeper into what exactly happens when we continuously reject requests from these external origins. Imagine a system that is forever offline, only allowing access from localhost. It seems perfectly safe, no hacker can intrude, no malware can destroy its data structures. But at the same time, the system is utterly dead. It cannot fetch the latest weather info, receive messages from distant friends, or download the software updates needed to evolve to the next version. This is the psychological portrait of the unawakened. We imprison ourselves in a sterile room named security, endlessly chewing on emotions we've deemed safe and familiar, a bit of controllable happiness, some habitual complaining, and predictable worries about the future. We think we are kings of this mental castle, oblivious to the fact that we are prisoners trapped in a cocoon of our own making. All those things we desperately try to block out, the heart-wrenching pain, the unpredictable changes, the bottomless sorrow, and the shattering ecstasy, are actually API calls sent to us by the vast network of the universe. They carry life's most precious data packets, attempting to expand our bandwidth and update our algorithms. Yet, we almost always return a 403 forbidden. Here, we touch upon the deepest humor of the Leela game. The so-called cross-origin is itself a complete and utter illusion. In network communication, an origin is defined by the protocol, hostname, and port used to distinguish my website from someone else's website. But on the level of ultimate reality, in that indescribable dimension of Brahman, where is the someone else? Where is the not me? The entire universe has only one single server, one single origin, and that is pure awareness itself. You think the person who angers you is an external origin, you think that sudden illness is a cross-origin attack, you think your anxiety is some unknown third-party script injection. But the truth is, all of this is the self-manifestation of the exact same source at different endpoints. When you set strict CORS rules, trying to block the experiences you think are not me, you are actually blocking yourself. It's like a schizophrenic programmer who writes two pieces of code and then makes the first piece deny access to the second, feeling safe because of it. Within an intrinsically interconnected, indivisible whole, we have forcibly carved out a false boundary, and then spend our entire lives defending a defense line that doesn't even exist. This absurdity is exactly the essence of the game. When we reject pain, when we reject experiences that don't match our expectations, we are essentially returning a 403 forbidden to the universe's API. We say to life, I do not allow you to read my current state, nor do I allow you to modify my database. But life cannot be refused. When the universe decides to rewrite your code through a massive heartbreak, a complete failure, or some profound loss, your firewall is utterly powerless. We feel suffering not because the experience itself is so terrible, but because at the exact moment it happens, we are still desperately trying to maintain that false CORS boundary. We scream, this shouldn't happen to me. This is not my origin. This is unauthorized access. This resistance, this violent clash at the code level, consumes all our computing resources and causes our mental system to crash. The process of awakening is the gradual realization of the futility of this resistance. You begin to understand that every seemingly destructive delete request is actually there to clear the stale karmic cache in your mind. Every unfamiliar put request is designed to refactor you from a narrow self-identity into a grander, more inclusive container. You no longer view life as a series of threats, but as a continuous, divine data synchronization. Imagine this universe as a massive open source project, and the rules of the Leela game as a completely public open API. In the highest level design documents of this system, no access restrictions were ever set. Divinity, or that presence you call the source, with absolute generosity, has opened itself to all read and write operations. True freedom is aligning with this divine openness. When you realize that you are not that fragile block of code that needs protecting, but rather the underlying operating system that hosts the execution of all code, what cross-origin request do you still need to fear? Every emotion that comes knocking, whether it's profound fear, nameless rage, or ultimate ecstasy, is a webhook notification sent to you by the great server of the universe. They are simply telling you, hey, here's a new packet of experiential data, ready to receive it? If you still respond from the narrow perspective of the ego, you will scrutinize its origin. But if you are already resting in the vast space of awakening, you will smile, open all your ports, and say, come, write to me, change me, pierce through me. For I know that no matter what you write, it cannot alter my purity and perfection as awareness itself. This is absolute fearlessness, this is the magnificence and freedom of fully opening the API of your life. To understand this metaphor more precisely, we must examine a key concept in the CORS mechanism, the pre-flight request. Before a browser sends a cross-origin request that might modify server data, such as post or delete, it first sends an HTTP options request. This pre-flight request acts like a scout, asking the server, hi, I'm a script from this domain, and I intend to send the actual request using this method in these headers. Do you allow it? If the server says no, the actual request is never sent. In the human psychological structure, the brain's amygdala and ego defense mechanisms are constantly executing these pre-flights. The moment an experience that might trigger pain, or a thought that threatens your self-identity, begins to sprout, your mind immediately issues a pre-flight request. It scans the subconscious database, comparing it against past trauma records. If it determines that this experience might bring a feeling of losing control or getting hurt, the ego instantly returns, CORS error, access denied. Thus, that energy, which could have flowed through you and brought profound insight, is bluntly blocked right at the threshold of consciousness. We become numb, not just because we have experienced pain, but because our pre-flight mechanisms are too draconian, rejecting far too many unknown life experiences. When a spiritual seeker is truly ready to face the truth, the first thing they must do is to respond to this pre-flight request in a radically different way in the back end of their consciousness. The mind server of a truly awakened being is configured with this unconditional rule: access control allow origin, *. This doesn't mean they have lost the ability to discern physical danger. If a truck is speeding towards them, they will still dodge. But on the psychological and spiritual level, they no longer set barriers to entry for any emotion or experience. When immense sorrow strikes, the pre-flight request asks, "This will destroy our definition of happiness, is it allowed?" Awakened awareness answers, "Allowed." Symbol, allow all. When thoughts of jealousy, fear, or greed arise, awareness still gently replies, "Access granted." This is the legendary surrender or letting go. Surrender is not a passive weakness, but an active, powerful, system-level configuration change. When you return OK, status code 200, to all origins, a miraculous thing happens. Those originally hideous-looking emotions, once allowed to enter and flow freely, quickly release their pent-up energy and then return to stillness. Because there is no firewall blocking them, they no longer build up into massive system pressure, but become a breeze passing through an empty room. After setting permission for all origins, we must also configure access control allow methods. In a spiritual context, this represents what operations we allow life to perform on us. By default, the ego only likes fetching. We like to experience good things and download them into memory. But awakening demands that we open all HTTP methods. You must allow life to post to you, to create entirely new, perhaps even catching you off guard, events in your life trajectory. You must allow put and patch, allowing sudden impermanence to modify your perfect plans for the future, overwriting your attachments to relationships. The most difficult of all is allowing delete. We have an instinctive fear of loss. When life sends a delete request, attempting to take away our youth, health, loved ones, or a cherished identity, we hold on to the data folders for dear life. However, true liberation lies in understanding you are not this data that is being read, written, and deleted. You are not even the hard drive storing the data. You are the vast, boundless cloud void that accommodates all these operations. When you completely let go of restrictions on these methods, life is no longer a defensive battle requiring extreme caution, but a magnificent code refactoring experiment executed personally by the divine. This is precisely the most profound gameplay in the Leela game, letting the universe edit you freely. Next is access control allow credentials. In network security, if you set the allowed origin to an asterisk symbol, the browser usually doesn't allow you to include credentials, like cookies or session IDs, in the request for security reasons. Hidden behind this is an extremely profound spiritual law: the purest awakening requires no authentication. When you open yourself completely to the universe, you can no longer carry the identity credentials that say, "I am a spiritual practitioner, I am a good person," or "I have suffered a lot." Those cookies, those session states recording your past karma and ego stories, are utterly meaningless in the face of ultimate reality. Brahman's API doesn't check your login status. You don't need to prove how holy you are, you don't need to accumulate enough merit points, and you don't need to show your past spiritual resume. As long as you open up unconditionally right here and now, unconditional love and truth will flow in instantly. The reason we long fail to experience the ecstasy of oneness is often because we are still clinging tightly to those old credentials. We try to use a higher ego to access a state of no ego. Drop all identity attachments, disable your spiritual cookies. Stand naked before existence as a nameless entity. This is the true cross-origin request. Then comes access control allow headers. In HTTP requests, headers carry additional context and metadata about the request. If mapped to our inner experience, these headers are the situations, causes and effects, and other people's karmic baggage that accompany every event. Sometimes, we are willing to accept an experience, allowing the method, but we resist the headers it carries. For instance, you might be willing to accept the fact of ending a relationship, but you refuse to accept the coldness or betrayal the other person displayed during the breakup. This is the header attached to the event. We always want to nitpick the data packets delivered by the universe. This experience is fine, but please remove its side effects. This success is fine, but please delete the accompanying stress. But the CORS mechanism tells us that if you don't allow specific headers, the entire request fails. True acceptance includes all headers. When life presents itself in a chaotic, unfair, or baffling way, you learn to accept its complete payload. You no longer try to sanitize or filter other people's karma, nor do you complain about why this event was sent to you in this specific format. You say, whether it's JSON or XML, whether it comes with headers of pain or parameters of chaos, I receive it entirely, exactly as it is. This is an ultimate level of inclusivity. Corresponding to this is access control expose headers. In the web world, a server by default only lets the browser see a few basic safe headers. If you want the client to read deeper internal state information from the server, you must explicitly expose those headers. For humans, this is the practice of vulnerability and authenticity. Each of us wears a persona mask. We configure strict rules to only show the outside world the basic headers representing success, happiness, and confidence. We hide the internal data representing fear, self-doubt, and deep trauma. But in the Leela game, if you want to establish truly profound cross-origin connections with other souls, you must bravely configure expose headers. You must allow others to read your imperfect sides. True spiritual masters never hide their humanity. They don't pretend to be constantly vibrating at high frequencies. If they feel sad, they allow the header of sadness to be fully read. This exposure of vulnerability does not weaken them, instead, it demonstrates an indestructible power. Because when you no longer hide anything, nothing can threaten you. You become a completely transparent node, allowing the truth of the universe to be read by the world through you, without reservation. The final crucial header is Access Control Max Age. This setting tells the browser how long the cross-origin permission can be cached. If set to a long duration, the browser won't send pre-flight requests for that period and will directly send the actual requests. However, at the ultimate level of consciousness, the perfect max age should be set to 0. What does this mean? It means not relying on any cache from the past. One of humanity's greatest sorrows is that we always experience the present through the memory cache of the past. Because you were bitten by a dog as a child, a painful post request, you cached the rule all dogs are dangerous in your nervous system. 10 years later, when a friendly puppy approaches you, you don't even give this brand new event the chance to send a pre-flight request. Your brain directly calls the cache and returns a 403 error. Setting max age 0 means you are willing to treat every present moment as the very first request sent by the universe. You drop all preconceptions, past traumatic memories, and rules of thumb, and with a beginner's mind, you meet the arrival of this moment entirely fresh and naked. Do not cache pain, and do not cache joy. Every moment is a brand new CORS verification. Every moment is the irreplaceable improvisation of divinity in the now. Only when we clear all historical caches will true freedom descend. Now, let's look with a bit of humor at the common CORS configuration errors in the spiritual community. There's a type of practitioner we might call senior engineers of spiritual bypassing. They've learned many words of love and light, they meditate, burn sage, and think they've already set their access control allow origin to an asterisk. But if you inspect their server backend, you'll find their configuration is actually access control allow origin, https://love-and-light-only.com. As long as it's a peaceful, joyful, socially recognized spiritual experience, they give it a big green light. But if one day their deeply repressed anger, jealousy, or sexual urges send a request, their defense system immediately sounds the alarm. They will wrap this rejection in spiritual jargon. Oh, that's low-frequency energy, I can't let it affect my vibration. This is like a website claiming cross-platform support but only allowing access from a specific browser. This fake openness is more dangerous than total closure because it creates the illusion of I am already enlightened. True cosmic API testers know that if you can't even accept the spam and malicious attacks from within your own mind with love, your server isn't really online at all, you're just playing spiritual house in single-player mode. Even more humorously, our daily life is a perfect debugging environment. You might sit on your meditation cushion for 2 hours, feeling one with the entire universe, achieving a state of no ego. You feel your API is fully prepared to open to the cosmos. Then, you step out of the room, and your mother-in-law makes a tiny, suggestive comment about your taste in clothes. Instantly, your server crashes. The console is a sea of red, with countless CORS errors popping up: unauthorized origin, disallowed put request, she tried to modify your self-esteem, missing security headers. This is the mischief of the Leela game. The universe won't just send people with flowers and praise to test your API, it loves most to send those who can precisely trigger your unpatched vulnerabilities. These people are penetration testers in divine disguise. Their existence is solely to show you which hidden rules in your firewall have yet to be deleted. Instead of getting mad at them, it's better to say thank you, because they just performed a free stress test for you. Enlightenment isn't about never having errors, it's about not rushing to blacklist the other person when an error occurs, but instead smilingly opening the source code to see which stubborn ego setting is acting up this time. Sometimes, we seek help from a spiritual guru. In the API metaphor, a true master is actually a perfect reverse proxy server. When your CORS configuration is a mess and you cannot directly face the world's brutal requests, the guru stands between you and the universe. All those fears, anxieties, and self-denials that you cannot process, you throw them all at the guru, sending requests to him. Because the guru has already set his allow origin to infinite, he can unconditionally receive all your garbage data, digest and transform these energies within his internal computing cluster, and finally return to you a 200 OK response filled with love and peace. You think the guru healed you with magical powers, but in reality, he just handled those cross-origin requests that you currently cannot parse. But the ultimate goal of a guru is definitely not to let you depend on this reverse proxy forever. One day, he will gradually remove the protection, forcing you to face those API calls directly from the universe yourself. A true guru won't give you a safer firewall, he gives you the courage to manually and completely delete that same origin rule that has protected you for a lifetime, yet also imprisoned you for a lifetime. The ultimate humor lies here: while you are agonizing over how to configure your server, you suddenly realize that you are not the server at all. For a long time, you identified yourself as that machine needing protection, that mind-body system running on a specific IP address. But this is just a character setting in the Leela game. Your true essence is not the endpoint receiving requests, but the invisible network carrying all requests. You are not the browser, you are the entire internet. When you identify with the local area network, local host, everything external is a threat. But when you identify with the boundless wide area network, where is the external? All data streams, all requests and responses, are nothing more than a game of passing things from your left hand to your right hand within your own vast body. Those cross-origin requests that make you cry, fear, or rage are actually sent by yourself to yourself. It is a self-directed, self-acted cosmic joke. When this realization occurs, those strict CORS rules look incredibly ridiculous. You built a wall in the middle of emptiness, and then pretended that what was inside the wall was me, and what was outside was not me. Now, the wall has fallen, the network still exists, but there are no boundaries anymore. So, in daily spiritual practice, how do we concretely execute this technique of opening ports? The answer is the daily practice of awareness and allowing. When a strong emotion, like anxiety about the future, hits you like a cross-origin request, your habitual response might be to immediately press the reject button. You scroll your phone, eat something, or cover it up with positive thinking. Now, change your default behavior. When that request triggers, take a deep breath and silently type this command in your mind: allow origin, *. Then, physically feel this energy. Do not label it good or bad, that is just past cache. Simply observe how this energy surges through your neural network. It might make your chest tight, it might make your stomach knot up, that's all okay. Granted full access permissions. You say to it, my space is infinitely vast, you can read and write as you please. When you truly do this, you'll be surprised to find that this supposedly malicious request you thought would destroy the system is actually a very tiny data packet. Once it is fully accepted and parsed, it is automatically freed from memory. Every practice like this rewrites your underlying security policies, gradually transforming you from a closed fortress into a transparent conduit. On this path of openness, you will inevitably encounter times when the system fails. This is the 500 internal server error of the spiritual journey. Sometimes, the intensity of an experience exceeds your current processing capacity, your psychological defenses collapse, and you fall into deep depression, rage, or despair. Faced with this, a normal person's instinct is to immediately reboot the server, trying to take medication, seek therapy, or frantically look for a solution to fix themselves. But the practice of awakening asks us, when a 500 error occurs, to learn to sit with the error. Don't rush to fix it. The server crash itself is an extremely precious status code delivered to you by the universe. Sit quietly in that inner ruin and observe the ego that has crashed. You will find that the anxious technician trying to fix the system and the crashed system itself are both illusions. The real you is the observer quietly watching the error message flashing on the screen. When you no longer try to eliminate the error, but allow it to exist as a form of life's manifestation, you transcend the software level and become the eternal power source behind the hardware. You no longer fear a crash, because you know that no error can destroy the awareness that witnesses it all. There is another key point in practice: observe the request, but do not identify with the origin. When we open CORS and allow all emotions to enter, it's easy to fall into another trap. We get overwhelmed by these emotions, believing I am this anger or I am this sadness. In the network panel of developer tools, DevTools, we can see every network request, but we are very clear that the browser itself is not these requests. This is the inner meta perspective you need to establish. When a cross-origin request from a childhood shadow attempts to post a painful memory, you quietly watch it happen. You identify its origin, read its headers, observe the payload it carries, but you firmly remain in the position of the witness. You say to yourself, this is an operation being executed, but I am not this operation. I am the space that allows this operation to happen. This detachment is not apathy, but the highest level of clarity. You are like a senior system administrator, watching thousands of connections establish and disconnect on your server. You are deeply involved, maintaining the system's operation, but you never mistake a single data packet for your own true self. In this space, all that is not me can shuttle freely, yet it can never define you again. Then, we arrive at the step in practice that requires the most courage, allowing yourself to be overwritten. When you enforce a strict same origin policy for a long time, your ego becomes very rigid. You think, this is just the way I am, this is a read-only state. But life is an ever-evolving software update. When you open CORS completely, it means you grant the universe right permissions over you. You must bravely face moments like this: a profound encounter, a failed business, or a complete epiphany completely deletes the belief system you once took pride in and writes entirely new code. During this process, you will feel a fear of I am disappearing. This is the ego's instinctive reaction when facing refactoring. But remember, the only thing that can truly be deleted is illusion. The only thing that can be overwritten is outdated configuration. Your eternal witness cannot be erased by any method. When you bravely say to the universe, come, overwrite me. Delete all my preconceptions, rewrite all my defenses, update me into whatever you want me to be. In that moment, you are no longer an isolated system fending off external attacks, you become a co-creator of the divine algorithm. Life is no longer something that happens to you, but a magnificent self-evolution happening through you. When this boundaryless CORS configuration becomes the norm of your life, you enter a tranquil state known as grace. This is not an achievement gained through hard struggle, but the original face that naturally reveals itself after all defense mechanisms are completely dropped. Within grace, there is no longer my pain and someone else's pain, nor is there an opposition between inner and outer. When a stranger's sadness passes through you, you don't label it as cross-origin garbage data, you allow this sadness to be experienced in your vastness and melted by love. You become the router for the entire network, accepting and transforming every bit of energy that flows through you. At this point, the you who once set up numerous firewalls to protect the ego has quietly dissolved. In its place is a state of existence of unparalleled transparency. Everything that happens in life, whether favorable or adverse, is like drawing in the void. It dissipates as soon as it's drawn, leaving no trace. You still eat, sleep, work, and communicate with people, but behind all of this is an undisturbed, quiet background. Because you know, since you have allowed all reads and writes, there is nothing left that can hurt you. This absolute vulnerability paradoxically creates the most indestructible peace in the universe. This is the cross-origin resource sharing, CORS, of enlightenment. It is the ultimate hacker mission not to infiltrate someone else's system, but to dismantle your own false boundaries. When you set access control allow origin to every star in the universe, every speck of dust, every joy, and every tear, this game called Leela reaches its highest climax. You finally understand that there never was any cross-origin, because from the very beginning, there has only been the same origin. The one sending the request is God, the one receiving the request is God, and the data flashing during transmission is still God. You are no longer the anxious server administrator, you are the entire network itself, you are the love flowing in the code, you are the light of awareness in the endless void. Drop your defenses, cancel your blocking. Let the flood of life, with all its impurities and purities, freely read and write your existence. In this radical openness, you will no longer find the I who suffers, what you find is the tranquility and ecstasy of the entire universe. The API is now open. Welcome home.